focus on leveraging what you already have. This is a game changer. And the more companies realize it, the more successful they will become. Second thing is that obviously regarding AI is not just another tech. It's a complete strategy that you need to strategize your business and mainly your data around. In order to use the data, and this is where we fit in, the first and the most important thing that you need to make sure is the data is curated and reliable and up to date. Because the thing is that if you go now to most of the ATSs, to most of the CRM, the people you use, you will realize that basically all those records are non-updated, right? It means that they're not reflecting the real situation. So how can I use a repository that's not reflecting? So the first thing you need to make sure is that your data is curated, that your records are not duplicated, that you have all the information your teams needs and requires in order to be able to re-engage again and again with those people in your database.
Welcome to The Staffing Ring, the podcast where the gloves come off and we go deep into the recruitment industry's best practices and tactics. We aim to bring you actionable insights for how staffing and recruiting agencies are winning today. This production is brought to you by Ringover, the leading staffing communication platform connected to your ATS and CRM, empowering conversations for your recruiters.
Welcome to another episode of The Staffing Ring. I'm your host, Jason Lawson, and today I'm joined by the CEO and founder of Woo, Liran Kotzer. Welcome, Liran.
Hi, Jason. Thank you for inviting me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, and I'm super excited to share, your insights and perspectives on the market with the audience, and along the way learn, more about Woo, what you do, and the problems you solve. So, before we jump into the staffing ring, could you give the audience a little insight to Woo and the business?
Yeah, so we're probably going to speak about it later in many other aspects regarding the industry evolution. But in general, Woo is a platform that helping our customers to better utilize their own ATS, meaning their own Bullhorn. And that means that, companies has so many interactions with candidates and with contacts that they build during the years since their inceptions, right? And unfortunately, what we realize is that they're not taking advantage, right, of that history with all those people that they build during the years in order to leverage this into building the business and bringing more business. So basically, the problem is starting with data and the fact that those ATS's records stay static from the moment, people got into those ATSs, whether it's contact or candidates. And what Woo has is a beautiful technology called career tracking. It's an AI-powered technology that basically doing a very simple thing. It's very complicated, but it's very simple to explain. It's tracking people's career, meaning that every time someone change a job, getting promoted, relocating, gaining more skills, more certificated, that's a super valuable information, right, for the customers to know in order to keep relationship as a long-term relationship. And we know how to provide that information from A to Z, meaning that once we're getting into the ATS, we keep the records in the ATS, both of the candidates and the contacts, fresh with up-to-date information regarding what those people are doing today. And we keep maintaining that information in the long run from A to Z, including validation, including everything. And the customers enjoy a much, much more powerful asset now, which continuously being updated with fresh data that they can now leverage into new business.
Yeah, I love the whole, value proposition of being able to have that real time and ongoing enrichment of that candidate and client data. So anyway, let's learn more and dive into round one. So I think with all that said, the power and the effectiveness of Woo and what you do and who you serve, I think it's important to think about, okay, what are the challenges and what are the kind of big macro movements in the staffing and recruiting industry? So what do you think are the key things happening right now and perhaps the next few months ahead that agency leaders really need to be thinking a lot about?
Yeah. So there are many aspects they need to think about because all this industry of staffing is basically changing and evolving and transforming into something which I see as a complete new way of doing business. But if I would need to put like two critical things that everybody should be aware to and be focused on are one is the fact that there is now economic uncertainty. And actually, this is a very special time because in the staffing world, when you talk about economic uncertainty, that's something that happened many, many times before, right? But this time is a bit different because in every time there was an economic uncertainty or vice versa, usually the situation is that you either has a shortage of employers or shortage of candidates, right? Every time the market turns into an employer market or candidate market, and agencies know how to navigate between those, two modes. But now we're facing something a bit different, which is from one hand, everybody's speaking about, bringing new business in 2024 and how hard is it because, the market is shrinking a bit and it's tougher for agencies to win new customers. So that's obviously the situation. But another thing which is also very interesting is that it's also still a market where there is a shortage in candidates, right? On the stage in Engage, in the last Boron conference, Art Papas, the CEO, also mentioned it that it's not just agencies are facing now shortage of new positions, they doing it in parallel with the shortage of candidates, and that's a very very challenging situation, which I think we all should understand how you're facing such a situation, right? And when that answer, we don't know when that uncertainty will over. There are so many parameters that affecting it, but I would say that the uncertainty, this is the reality, and agencies now needs to understand, okay, how do I deal with that situation where I need to basically be challenged from both of my customers, both my candidates and clients, that I have shortage. How do I run my business effectively without, losing money and paying unnecessary expenses on resources that I don't need? So that's one thing that I think that everybody should focus on. And the second thing is obviously, which everybody is focused on, is the rise of AI and, what does it mean for an agency in terms of being a player in that market where everybody is speaking about AI. So obviously now everybody's speaking about AI and everybody, trying to navigate through that world. But I'm not sure that based on our experience that most of the agencies and the leaders there know exactly how to strategize and what does it mean. Eventually, I think that the biggest risk here is that, AI bringing an amazing opportunities, but the biggest threat is that agencies can easily lose any competitive advantage they have today, right? Just because they have operation, just because, they already build processes and flows and all those things when it comes to an AI generation can be achieved very easily, right? By new competitors or by your competitors. And then the question is, okay, so what do I have, right? Like what my agency, how can we compete in a world that, tools are so achievable and becoming so smart, and you don't need, I met a few days ago a special agency that, their business model was the fact that they employed offshore recruiters in India, very cheap labor or cheaper labor.
Yeah.
And that was part of their operation, right? And that was part of their strengths. But in the recent 2 years, they feel like it's not an advantage anymore because what they are offshoring to places like India can be done automatically with technologies. And now all the economics of the business, they have to rethink about it while, wages are keep increasing and technology providing you more and more alternatives. that's something that eventually is going to change the competition landscape, right? So I think everybody speak about AI, but I'm not sure that everybody understand how critical it is to be able to strategize correctly and understand how you using AI in order to generate competitive advantage. Would love to elaborate more on that later, but I think that's very, very, very critical. It's not about implementing AI technologies. It's about how do I leverage that critical technology in order to build a competitive edge in such a hard market.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I think we'll just pause there and kind of soak that all up, because I think those two kind of pillars of market dynamics and movements are fundamental and critical to agency success going forward. So I'd like to kind of peel back the onion a bit on both of those, actually, Liran. So the first, you spoke about the contraction in new job place openings, and normally you'd have a flush kind of candidate market. But I certainly agree. I think there's certainly segments of the market, whether it be healthcare or legal, where, and I think actually in many kind of areas, it feels like the kind of specialization in different types of roles. Even you might think about sales and marketing, where there might be industry experience or AI experience. So companies, even though they've got fewer roles, have a much more well-defined set of requirements of what does the ideal candidate look like. So how are you thinking in terms of how does Woo help that matching? Because as I say, like in many cases there can be sometimes double or triple the number of kind of signals of what does the ideal candidate look like, and how that can be enriched and kept up to date, with Woo and other tools within Bullhorn. So I'd be interested to kind of delve a bit deeper into how agencies should be thinking about solving that with the people and technology.
Yeah. So continuing a conversation regarding AI, and this is where, we fit in, and I think let's talk about it in a second. Before specifically talking about Woo, is what the strategy here, right? Okay, so we have a critical technology. Everybody coming to the agencies now, offering them so many technologies, so many agents, so many things regarding AI. But eventually, the key question here is, as I mentioned, is how do I leverage that technology in order to build competitive edge? And the answer that leads all the strategy here is that the only thing that you can leverage in order to build a competitive edge with AI is your unique data. Everything that is unique to your business that you can feed a machine, and nobody else can feed that data the same machine, that means that the value of that machine is going to be specifically and uniquely to your business, right? Now, the question is, okay, what data do we have that nobody else have, right? And now the answer is, look at your Bullhorn, look at your ATS. All your unique data is sitting right there. And what is that unique data? The unique data is your history, is your agency history with so many candidates and so many clients in the past. And that history is being documented. And that history regarding the candidate, experience and the last interaction you had with them and the interviews they made through you, right? That's a valuable history regarding that candidate. Regardless the fact that this candidate knows you, right? It means that you knows more about that candidate than anyone else. Nobody has that history. Same for your contact, for your clients. So some of your clients had great experience with you, some have not. Some, had a very specific type of character, some others. All that is being documented. Now, the question is, those clients now move to other companies, right? We want to speak again with those clients when they move into other companies. Now, here is my unique information. My unique information is my history with those clients, the same like in Candidate. So now the question is, what do I do with that unique data and how do I leverage it, right?
Right.
And this is the real strategy, because first you need to understand and acknowledge the fact that you have to use your data as a competitive asset. And second, you need to understand how you're using it. So in order to understand how you're using it, this is also going to break into two parts. In order to use the data, and this is where we fit in, the first and the most important thing that you need to make sure is the data is curated and reliable and up to date. Because the thing is that if you go now to most of the ATSs, to most of the CRM that people use, you will realize that basically all those records are non-updated, right? It means that they're not reflecting the real situation. So how can I use a repository that's not reflecting? So the first thing you need to make sure is that your data is curated, that your records are not duplicated, that you have all the information your teams needs and requires in order to be able to re-engage again and again with those people in your database. Now, imagine that once the data is curated, now the second thing, and this is where we fit, right? We are a very, very important player.
Yes.
That makes sure that your data stay curated. Now, because anything you're going to implement on top of it is going to rely on that data. And I'm always saying to my customers, like, you guys built a huge tech stack, but you have unreliable data. So it's like buying a Ferrari and put it on a mud. It's not going to work, right? Like, you have to make sure that your data is fixed before you implement anything on top of it. And as we say, AI, data is critical. So first, fix your data. And now, the second thing is, what do I need, right? So now I have the data. Now I want to leverage it. And, I have a very, very specific insight regarding how you need to think about your tech stack. Because what we seeing, speaking with many customers, is that, during 2021, 2022, people bought a lot of technology. Not necessarily valuable. And in 2023, 2024, where companies start to realize that, they need to be more effective because the market is not positive, then they realize that they have a lot of tech stack that they're not using, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to tech stack, when you go to the Moola marketplace, there are wonderful solutions to almost any aspects of your business, right? Interviews, checking, references, everything you want, right? The question is,
right,
what do I need? Really, what do I need? Because not every technology is going to be implemented successfully. We can talk about it later, but I think that if you understand that implementing a technology is a huge risk, and usually it's in many cases it's doomed to fail, you need to be very, very smart regarding what's your technology picks, because it's not just the monthly payment for that technology, is what you need to do around that, right? Which costs a lot of money. You need to train your people. You need to push them. You need to implement it, right? You need to make sure that everybody is working on it, tracking it. It's a lot of efforts to implement technology. So it's a strategic move. It's a strategic decision regarding what is your tech stack and how you leverage your data. And I think that eventually there are three critical pillars, which I think that those are the most important ones that eventually, let's say, covering 80% of what you need, which are, once you have the data fixed, you need to make sure, obviously you have your Bulon, right, to hold the data, but now you need to make sure that you have a very, very strong search tool in order to search within that data, in order to let your people, your teams, search effectively that data. Imagine LinkedIn, right, and those kind of experiences. You need a very strong automation tool, right? Because data, when you're dealing with massive data, you want to make sure that you automate a lot of the things that needs to be happen around that data.
Yes.
Right. And the third thing that you need is to be able to use analytics in order to measure everything, right? In terms of the effectiveness of the data, how you're leveraging the data correctly, regardless to which tool you use. And that I would say the three critical things that you need in order to actually have the most important capabilities around your data, right? To be able to search it, to automate it, and to measure it, right? On top of it now, you will find a lot of things. Now, if I will speak about the AI pillar, I think that once your data is curated and once you start using it, now every AI tool that you're going to examine, just think of what unique value that tool can provide about my unique data. If there is no unique value there, you better rethink about that AI implementation. So for example, just to give you an example, if there is anyone that knows how to predict, just throwing an example, when people will go back to search for job in your database, when it's most likely going to happen, and they're going to use your history in order to make that prediction, now you have a database that has one indicator that none of your competitors has, which is what probability this person now is sniffing around, right?
Right.
So that's the kind of thinking of saying, okay, how do I leverage that history in order to make my database more and more powerful and my service more and more unique to both of my candidates and to my recruiters.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, if you're going to do it correctly, this is another thing. You know, I used to run an agency in Tel Aviv, one of the largest tech agencies. I built it with my wife 15 years ago. And one of the things that kept me frustrated is the fact that we're building every day so many relationships with candidates that don't last, right? And once you have everything I just said, the data is being updated, you have search tools, you have automation tools, those relationships are going to last, right? And the more relationship you have that are going to last, the less you rely on third parties, the less you rely on job boards, on LinkedIn, and all those things that cost you so much money and affecting your business economics, which now you basically cannot afford in a tough market. You want to reduce those expenses. So the more you will be able to build those relationships to the long run, it means that the less dependent you are on third parties and your operation is going to work much better. Because when you know it, is that when you're doing cold outreach in sales, and recruiting and sales are the same, it has a different effect versus warm outreach to someone that already knows you. Right? So it's not just that you spare the money of buying unnecessary candidates / contact outside. It's also the effectiveness of that approach is going to be much, much, much better. And we have customers that right now doing 85% of their entire placements in business just by using their bullhorn and making sure that the data and everything is curated. And that's, a terrific things for the business to be able to do 85% of your activity right in your ATS. Yeah.
Yeah. That's incredible stat, and certainly transformative, as you say, from having a stale database of contacts and having to rely on job boards and LinkedIn, which those fees have keep going up radically over the last 3 or 4 years, and you're really solving a very common and painful problem for a lot of agencies. I do love the kind of description of curated data, because I think enriching data is often sort of seen as like a one-time event, whereas I think the more curated data is speaks volumes to the benefit and effectiveness to help driving AI and automation is the classic, garbage in, garbage out. So, and what you're
Right.
doing here is really making data the key asset in the agency. So I did actually want to pick up on something you said earlier, Liran. Data is the most important asset in agency. How does that come across when people, agency leaders might be thinking, well, my recruiters, my team are the most important asset in the company. And you're saying actually, without the right data, the people are not going to be effective. So how does that kind of balance out with, client conversations?
Yeah. Yeah, first, I want to argue with them that people is a very, very important asset in the company. That's for sure, and it's going to be the same. Um, I think that data is something that is relatively a new concept in terms of understanding key assets. But and I think there is a shift. Like in every market, there is the early adopters and then all the followers. So when you look at the early adopters of that market, um, you see people that understand what I just said of trying to map the data and then to understand what are the unique value can be generated from that unique data. So I think, but when you look at agencies, and I'm not blaming them, agency eventually, the leaders, their mindset is around, service, is around, processes, efficiency. It's a service company. But eventually, when it comes to how do I implement AI technologies, how do I leverage unique data into unique value, that requires a different kind of thought. And what I learned is that sometimes the decision makers regarding those kind of things are not necessarily entitled to be able to, strategize those aspects, but they still needs to make decision. And I don't, and sometimes those decisions are not come with a real strategy. So I think that, eventually I think that in agencies, even smaller, they will need an AI advisor that eventually will be able to help them doing exactly what I said, strategize, how they're going to get into that competitive landscape with these AI capabilities on their data. And yes, I think that, when you're speaking today, sometimes you can speak with leaders that are really not aware to what's happening, and they can say, yeah, I have my bullhorn, we have our data, but our recruiters are very successful on LinkedIn, so we're fine, right? And I think this is a very, very dangerous statement, because if your team is successful on something that is not your asset, that means that everybody can be successful in the same way like you. And the more you will stick with that, it means that you will need to to increase your expenses on one hand if you scale, and you eventually will start face a much harder and challenging market for you. So you have to find the way you can leverage your own assets and not just say, I'm great with what I have outside, because if you're using outside, you don't have anything that will protect you with all the changes that are happening right now in the market.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, while, we all love, LinkedIn for the value it gives, it is a rented space, right? You are kind of, leveraging data and the analytics and algorithms that sit within that's owned by LinkedIn and Microsoft. Whereas, as you say, your own database that you can curate and enrich, that's something that you own. So, a big difference for, agency owners to really think about. And I think also the power and the value of that data for the recruiters and, for the agency leaders who are listening here, thinking about actually for recruiter, attraction and retention, having the right tools and data and assets for them to be able to make, placements and make their commissions. That's why they're hungry. So the more tools and the more data you can give and provide to those recruiters,
absolutely,
the more it's going to help them.
And by the way, it's even beyond recruiting. Like if you look at recruiting agency, obviously you have the recruiters, but you have the sales. So here is a very interesting fact. So, when sales people are trying to get into a new company, right? They start making a research about the company. One of the critical things they're researching is which are the best POCs I should contact with in order to get into that company. So they're trying to go into the LinkedIn and find first networks and maybe a mutual friends, and they're doing a lot of stuff. But here is a question that I'm always asking them. So what if I would tell you that in that company that you want to get into now, there are 3 people that already work with you in the past and now working in that company? Would that be the best door opener? They said, yeah, for sure. because they know my service, right? And now they work in that company. All I need is to pick up the phone and say, hey, we work together. Let's start working together now. The next question is, how do you know that? How can you answer that question? And the answer is you can't. Why you can't? Because it's two different data pieces. The history is where you will find that those people work with you. The present data will tell you if they're working in that company. And until you can combine those data points together, you can't ask that question. Who knows me and my service that currently working in that company, right? And that means that if you can't do it, if you can't ask that very, very specific question, right? It means that you can't, your sales team will not be able to access that valuable leads of people that knows you're now working in companies that you can sell to, because you don't give them the information that need. So it doesn't matter which search tool you give them. It doesn't matter which automation you give them.
Yeah.
You don't have the data for them, right? So we understand that both in recruiting and in sales, they can do amazing things with the history of the company, with the data that exists in the CRMs. But in order to do it, they have to be combined with fresh data. And then, the party starts. And that's what we see. Once you start doing that tracking, suddenly 30-40% of your lead generation activity are going to come from Bullhorn.
Right.
Amazing. Why do I need to spend my time on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, spending all day trying to cold outreach people that hanging me the phone, rather than calling someone and say, hey, Matt, we know each other from company Y when you worked 3 years ago. Oh, amazing. How are you? Now we start speaking, right? So I think that's a critical change that needs to be happening.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I think we've raced through rounds 1 and 2. I think round 3, we talk a lot about the product innovations and kind of the marketplace, Bullhorn marketplace specifically here. You mentioned, Liran, earlier about, a lot of technology was adopted through 2021, 2022. A lot of it I see as kind of siloed, in terms of data and integrations. And I think, a lot of agencies are thinking, right, how do I kind of join it all up and make sure I've got all the data in one place so I can have the AI and automations, do their magic. How do you think agency leaders should be thinking about their tech stack today and building for the future and with data being really at the heart of, their plans?
Yeah. So as I said, the first thing is make sure data is correct and curated and maintained. That's the critical thing here. Second, make sure, as I said, the three critical pillars are there, which is the best search, best automation, and the ability to measure stuff in terms of analytics. I think Bullhorn basically today in their own ecosystem, even without bothering going into the marketplace, they can offer you a great tools. But if you go beyond Bullhorn in the marketplace, there are so many great players. I don't want to mention specific names in order to not to forget something really good. So I think that's, those are the three pillars. Now, going beyond that, I think, eventually, once your data is fixed, now it's time for you to start understanding, again, as I said, what AI capabilities and tools out there that will allow me to generate unique value that none of my competitors can generate, whether it's insights, agency work on supply demand. Today with AI capabilities, assuming that your data is fixed, you can implement great AI tools that give you insight regarding your supply demand, where you need to put your focus, right? Just as one example. So you can implement insights, you can implement chatbots, you can implement everything that you want, but make sure first that infrastructure of data, search, automation, and analytics is well placed and well adopted. And only then you're entitled to keep adding more layers into that tech stack. But if you don't have that foundations, nothing really work as great, because again, you're in a mud putting a lot of Ferraris. So make sure first to fix that.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's really, thinking about, just if I kind of replay some of that, it's the clean data, it's the proper kind of search capabilities. Then you're then able to do the automation and triggers off the back of that. And then I guess the final piece is allows you to kind of have that personalized outreach and contact and communication, which, is also where Ringover fits nicely to this as well. Both really at the front end,
Yeah.
where, call recordings, transcriptions, sentiment analysis, you can really build a lot of data that's unstructured,
Right.
but actually can be, structured and sits within Bullhorn. And also, at the back end, when you've got that personalized communication, if you phone calls or WhatsApp or messages, you can then start to have that, is really a curated and personalized communication experience, both to candidates.
Exactly.
And also, I think, really importantly these days, to clients for business development. I think, that business development one is a hot topic. And I'm sure something that Woo really enables agencies to do well as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. BizDev is a new model that we implemented this year, and we see fantastic results. Like I think 60% of our customers are already using that model in addition to the recruiting module. And in today world where the outbound of every company is increasing, new customers becoming more and more silent and more agnostic to new calls, to new emails. It's a very noisy environment. I don't know how many emails you're getting a day. I'm getting a lot of emails and outbound, and basically my chances to respond is only for those that for people that I already know. So
Right.
If you can focus on that, you will see more leads coming in, and nobody else can focus on that specific leads, and this is why it's a very strong competitive advantage. Yeah.
Well, Liran, really want to be respectful of your time. We want to move into round 4 and just have a quick Q&A and kind of find a bit more about your preferences. So, we talked about the staffing ring, imagining you're walking down and through the crowd into the stadium. What's your walk-on music? What's your theme tune?
So it's depend on my mood, but usually I'm listening to a lot of rock from the 90s. That's usually my mood. It's giving me a lot of energy.
Okay.
I'm from an older generation. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I can definitely picture that. So best movie, Fight Club or Rocky?
Yeah. Not big a fan of either of them, but if I need to pick one, I would probably Rocky.
Okay. Good classic movie.
Yeah.
There's
I think it's from the 19 or 80s.
the first. Probably it's even there's 80s. I have to look it up, but it's a just a classic. And if you're in the ring, red corner or blue corner, any
blue corner for sure.
Blue corner.
Yeah.
Great. Tel Aviv, I think I can probably guess the next one, beach or snow?
Oh, beach.
Beach, yes.
Absolutely. Mainly those days,
Yeah. Yes. Coffee or tea? What do you prefer?
Coffee. Espresso. One shot, small.
Nice. I like it. Short and sweet.
Short.
Salsa or guacamole?
Guacamole, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, they're all tasty.
Yeah. Texting or calling? How do people reach you?
Text. Oh my God, text. Yeah.
Just so much more time efficient, isn't it?
Yeah.
Give me the bottom line. What is it?
Exactly.
Virtual or in real life?
In real life.
In real life.
Yeah.
Can't beat it. We're gonna jump forward to some other questions now. So I think you're just looking at your experience and your background, Liran, serial entrepreneur, built this amazing company, Woo. Is there any kind of piece of advice that you've read or been given over the years that has really stuck with you and helped kind of you think about how to, grow the business?
Yeah, I think that, I got many great advices, and it's actually, there is no one general that I think is good for every business. But I know that, at least from my position as the one that managing this startup, with all the chaotic things that happening around the startup and so many aspects, the main things that I'm doing every day is focusing. How do you focus, everybody? How do you know exactly what you do? Opportunism, if you try to do a lot, if you try to take a lot, if you try to succeed with a lot of stuff, it has its price, and usually the price is very high. And what you need to make sure is that everybody is focusing, everybody is optimizing for the right things that you need, and not, you're not spending too much energy on doing a lot of stuff that you don't need. And that's sounds like a cliche, and sometimes it sounds even simple, but I think that's the most complicated thing about business, is how you stay focused and how you moving aside all the unnecessary noise, and what's the real things that you need to focus. And that's what guide me every day when I'm waking up, is first focus my mind.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think in today's world, I think whether you're a software company leader or agency lead, staffing agency leader, there's a world of possibilities and ways to, to grow and scale. But yeah, certainly I do agree. I think our focus, you can
a lot of tempting things happening.
Yes.
Exactly.
Shiny objects. And yes. Okay. Awesome. We need to rush because we've talked, gone into some amazing detail, but I again want to be respectful of your time today. Want to just cool down and just wrap up and just think about, the conversation we have had today. I guess firstly, are there any questions or topics, I should have, delved into, and alongside that, thoughts and kind of what are the key kind of takeaways for the audience today?
Yeah. So I think that first, thank you so much for the time and listening to my perspective. I think we covered the very important things here, and I think that the three biggest things I would take from our conversations, it's obviously focus on leveraging what you already have. This is a game changer, and the more companies realize it, the more successful they will become. Second thing is that obviously regarding AI is not just another tech. It's a complete strategy that you need to strategize your business and mainly your data around. And the third thing is you have to plan and move fast, because the market is not waiting to our decision. The market is just moving. So obviously everything we said, even though there are sometimes complicated and challenging moves, they are requires in the short term in order to align ourselves and our business to the new era of AI and everything that comes around it.
Yes, yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to end this episode, in terms of just that focus and really thinking about, actually, yes, we're in a tough economic climate, and it's often some of the best times to actually make a change and look forward and really commit to improving your tools, your data, your people. So fantastic.
Absolutely.
And Liran, where can people find you online, Woo and yourself?
Yeah, we are always online. So you can either first check our website to get more information. I think it's explaining about technology and what we're doing very well. So it's woo.io, WOO.io. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Liran Kotzer, Kotzer. I'm very happy to have conversation, discussions with if people have more questions and want just to speak about the market, I'm there. So feel free to reach me out. And
Amazing. Amazing. I'll drop those links in the show notes for anybody that wants to reach out.
Please.
Liran, thank you so much for spending the time being a guest on the Staffing Ring podcast. Really appreciated and valued your insights, and I hope, and I'm sure the audience have got a ton of value from this. So thank you again. And that's a wrap.
Thank you very much, Jason, for inviting me.
All right. That's a wrap on the episode of the Staffing Ring podcast, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
This production is brought to you by Ringover. If you're a staffing or recruiting agency wanting to improve and scale your client business development or candidate engagement, and you want to learn about the very best communication tools and tactics, you can find out more information by visiting ringover.com. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. And if you enjoyed this episode today, please leave us a 5-star rating. Thank you for listening to The Staffing Ring, and we'll see you in the next episode.